Hi, everyone, and a warm welcome to all of you for joining us tonight for the Fall 2020 Design Division Lecture Series. I'm Helen Maria Nugent. I am the Dean of Design at California College of the Arts and a faculty member in the MFA Design program. As you see on the screen, the design division at CCA hosts 6 undergraduate programs in fashion, furniture, graphic, illustration, industrial, and interaction design. And at the graduate level, we've got an interdisciplinary MFA, low residency, MBA in design strategy, and a 1-year MDes in interaction design. The division at CCA is a sanctuary for those with radical curiosity, where wonder and imagination are amplified through rigor and craft. We equip makers, thinkers, and doers with the wherewithal to envision alternative futures and the creative capacity to deliver generative solutions and inspire change. In partnership with our colleagues in fine arts, architecture, and the humanities, our collective purpose is to make art and design that matters. Our campuses are located in Huichin and Yelamu, also known as Oakland and San Francisco, respectively, on the unceded territories of the Chochenyo and Ramaytush Ohlone peoples, who have continuously lived upon this land since time immemorial. We recognize the historic discrimination and violence inflicted upon Indigenous peoples in California and the Americas, including their forced removal from ancestral lands and the deliberate and systematic destruction of their communities and culture. CCA honors Indigenous peoples, past, present, and future, here and around the world, and we want to honor and pay respect to our local elders. The Fall 2020 lecture series, as you can see in this image right now, is 8 incredible events. Hopefully you have attended some others. Our 8 esteemed guests are leading designers, strategists, curators, and educators. They'll be addressing how they use design as a tool of empowerment to defy and overcome the most pressing issues of our time: racial inequality, environmental catastrophe, and inhumane technological change. I invite you to join us for our last lecture, which is coming up a couple of days from now. You're going to learn throughout all these conversations about inclusive design, ethical AI, practicing with integrity, sustainable fashion, community enrichment, Afrofuturism, speculative fiction, and design for social, economic, and cultural change, which we'll hear a little bit more about tonight. I want to recognize and thank Juan Pablo Raal, who you see on the screen, a recent alum of the MFA in Design program, for creating all the branding and all the visuals for this lecture series. You can read more about Juan Pablo's approach to the commission and his goal of creating a decolonized expression of design and using a woven form to represent the interconnectedness of the different events in this series. And a big shout out to all of the fabulous design division staff who are working in the backgrounds, and we couldn't do this without you all, so thank you. As I said earlier, our last event in the series is just 2 days away on Thursday, November 12th at 6 p.m. and we will host Hannah Nagel, who will talk about the ethics of complex technology and emerging technologies. So a little bit of quick info for you tonight. If you have questions, and I hope you will have questions for Cubby, there's a Q&A button at the bottom of your screens. Please make sure that you put your question in there. And if there is a question that you really want us to ask Cubby, then you can upvote that question. So we'll remind you about that a little bit later. The chat is open too. If there's some other things you want to say hi to Cubby or please go ahead and do that, but put your questions in the Q&A. So can Cubby, Corey, and David turn their videos on, please? I almost see Cubby. I see Cubby's background. So I'm super eager for tonight's event, especially since Cubby is a 2007 alumnus of our own programs here. So it's always wonderful to welcome our alumni back. Corey Jones is with us, who's the chair of the ID program, and David Gonzalez, who's the assistant chair of the ID program. And he's going to be introducing Cubby to you in a minute. But first, let me just briefly introduce him. David Gonzalez was born in Nicaragua, Central America, and raised in California. He launched his professional design career as an intern at IDEO and has since worked with the California Design Company and also Astro Studios on products for companies like Motorola, Nike, HP, and so many others. He joined the boutique design firm Sozo Design in 2002 and became a partner and principal in 2004. As a managing partner, David's been responsible for leading projects with Fujitsu and Samsung, to name just a few, and has received numerous awards for his work from IDSA, Business Week, and ID Magazine. We're so lucky to have such experienced designers leading our programs here at CCA. So thank you all for being with us tonight. I hope you enjoy the lecture, and I am going to hand it over to David.
Good evening, everyone. As Helen Maria said, my name is David E. Gonzalez, and I'm the Assistant Chair of the Industrial Design Department here at CCA. I would like to mirror Helen Maria's thoughts and welcome all of you to tonight's lecture. I would like to double thank you for attending, as we all know the current situation, unfortunately, continues to be a speed bump for everyone. One of the positives of our current online reality is being able to engage with professionals from outside the Bay Area. Case in point, being able to bring in amazing guests and lecturers like tonight's speaker. Our guest has worked for Nike. He has worked for Super Heroic. On top of that, running his own firm. He at the moment, he's a senior designer at Skechers, right? We are so proud of him as he is a CCA alum. Please help me in welcoming Mr. Cubby Golden.
Thank you for having me. So yeah, my name is Cubby Golden, alumni of 2007, which is pretty crazy to think how long ago that was. But yeah, I appreciate you guys coming through, joining. Once again, I'm always happy to be here, give back to the CCA community and give my thoughts, give my spiel about everything in my life. So kind of jump into it. Again, Cubby Golden, born and raised in the Bay Area, Oakland, CCA alum, got into design by mistake, which I'll talk about a little briefly. But yeah, so kind of go into depth, design within color. Reason why I called it that is because growing up, I didn't know what design was, didn't care for it. Always knew what creativity was, always had it, but never knew what to do with it because I love sports. I always played sports pretty much my whole life. Basketball was my thing. Wanted to go to the NBA, got injured, realized that was never gonna happen. And one day I was reading an article called Slam. Really highlighting different things, sports. I was like, hell, this is something I can do for the rest of my life. Look more into research and figure out what these people did for their background. And really try to figure out what was design. Love Legos, love building things, but just never really understood and saw anyone look like me designing. Didn't know what that meant. I was new to basketball. So reason why I called design within color is because I didn't know what if anyone like me were in design, and find out I knew a lot of people down the road. But funny thing, reason why I attended CCA, my mom actually told me about CCA and told me if I should go to it, look into it, applying, and rest of history, I'm here. So when I go around about who, myself, how I got into design. So one of the things being mostly Black and a male in design, going to school, there was no one like me. That was one of the things I never talked about a lot with people. And it's a conversation I have with a lot of people, a lot of friends later on in life, is that when you're in a certain position, you kind of grow up in your life, you kind of are one of 5 people. High school, same thing. Middle school, I was one of 10 Black kids. And so you always had your clique of people, but when I got to college, I didn't know what that meant. I didn't know how to adapt, didn't know who I belonged to, but I was always a weirdo. So I always knew I can identify myself with being a weirdo. And that was something that kind of resonated with me and why I loved art school. It was because there really wasn't a boundary of what I looked like or what I did. It was just kind of about creativity and finding people who are really in that bubble. And I really loved about that. But there was still that one thing about me being design is that I never knew anyone that looked like me. And that was something that I never showed to anybody, my teachers. Sue Redding, I don't know if you're in the chat, but Sue was my advisor for a while. She never knew. And it was one of those things that I always just kind of asked myself, what am I doing here? There's no one like me. What's the end result? How do I accomplish what I see around me that I don't belong in? And especially being the Bay Area and before the birth of Silicon Valley, these are a conversation, you know, the frogs, the IDOs, the Fuse projects, all these different projects, places were appearing, but no one looked like me. And so in design school, I really had blinders on me because I just didn't know what to do because again, it's hard to push myself to really guide what I wanted to do with this because I was creative. I knew how to talk. I knew how to be outward thinking, but it's still one of those things that has kind of lingered on me a lot, where it's just like, how do I adapt and bring this out to people who really trust me or take me serious? Because with any industry, if you don't have anyone that looks like you, it's kind of hard for people to really like get to know where I'm coming from. So that was one of the things that I was really challenging myself in school and education, and the reason why I put blinders on, because my goal was just to be the first Black person to leave CCA in design and do big things. Because somewhere there's another version of me, younger, that probably didn't know what design was either. Fast forward to my junior year, once again, I was also known as the shoe guy at school. Ian McCall was one of my teachers. That was the first thing I told him about in my design class. Was be like, oh, what's your dream job? I'm like, I want to work at Nike. And he was like, oh, okay, that's cool, you're a shoe guy, because I love shoes. So everyone expected me to do a shoe. And the one thing I used to hate is that I ended up never doing a shoe project until my last year of college. Because I always wanted to push myself and challenge myself again, showing people that I wasn't just this one person that was into sports. Researching, taking different tasks, pushing myself and having friends and family around me is really what pushed me to really think outside the box and not be afraid. And it wasn't until my junior year I met a guy named Dwayne Edwards, who at the time was a director of basketball at Jordan. He was a guy from Inglewood, looked like me, but older. And I was like, wow, there's a person that does this, that works there, that's at this level. So at the time, I also was a basketball manager at UC Berkeley, and we're a Jordan-sponsored team. So every time a Jordan representative came through, I was always negotiating. I was always talking about different things, ideas, getting business cards, exchanging information, and really trying to figure out how do I connect with people? Because again, I found something that looked like me, and it was coming from a sports world, but it was from a design spectrum. So fast forward, got a couple of emails, landed in my lap. Dwayne reached out to me and said, hey, I heard you're interested in design. Let's chat. So we're on the phone talking, tell him my background, tell him where I'm from. He tells me where he's from. And I tell him exactly what I just told you guys. And he's like, you're right. There's not many of us here. And I want to help you get to where you need to be, but don't think as is the guarantee that's going to happen for you. And that was something I set with me in my mind. I was like, you know what? Just because someone's helping me doesn't mean this kid looks like me is going to be a guarantee that I have it in store. I'm like, perfect. You know, he's Black, I'm Black. We're going to help each other out. But really and truthfully, what he helped me out was really just understanding me and understanding what I need to do and how I want to approach things to get to the level he was at and beyond. So fast forward, going through junior year, I'm working on side projects while I'm working on school projects with him at the same time. And one of the things I learned a lot right there was mentorship. And that's something I always encourage a lot of people at every level, no matter what you are, is mentorship. Because mentorship to me was a very powerful thing, especially in college. Again, like I said, I didn't have a lot of voices to talk about a lot of things, but having him and just kind of talk about ideas, what I was going through, what I was facing as a Black designer in school, it really kind of helped me get through a lot of projects that I didn't know myself. And I'll actually share that with him. And he's like, yo, you should try this project out. Like, push yourself. Don't be afraid to express yourself, because people might think you one way, but your job is to prove them wrong every single time, but silently. You don't have to be arrogant. You don't have to be stupid about it. You're not shoving people's face, but let people know where they walk away. They can't say nothing else about you, but this guy knows what he wants to do. He knows how to approach it. He knows how to talk about it. And that's how I've been approaching my whole life, my whole career, is having those mentors constantly giving me feedback and understanding to know where I need to be at. Because again, I had a North Star to shoot for now. My North Star in basketball was like, oh, Michael Jordan. I'm gonna be like next Michael Jordan. not 6'6", 5'10" on a good day. And I knew I wasn't going to be able to be that player, but what was something I can be the Michael Jordan of what essentially was design. So that was cool. Actually, one of my spring breaks, while everyone was going on vacation, I actually went up to Portland. Another instructor of mine, Matt Rhodes, who also was a former instructor at CCA, was Nike at the time. And Sue, big up to Sue again, linked me with him saying, hey, this kid's gone a long way. You remember him when he's drawing flat things. He's actually gotten a lot better. And me and Matt connected again. We're a rekindle of information, understanding. He saw my growth. And I literally went up to Portland for a whole week and spent time in his attic drawing stuff while everyone else was partying, having fun. Because I had a mission. I'm like, okay, I'm going to this year of my life. I need to figure out, am I capable of doing this? And that was something that Matt really installed with me and say, hey, you got this. Keep pushing it, keep pushing it. You'll never let it go. And I'm like, all right, got you. Fast forward to that end of my week there, I actually called Dwayne up and said, hey, I'm in Portland. Hey, can I come talk to you? He's like, yeah, come through. We're chit-chatting, exchanging information. He's like, you have a portfolio with you? I'm like, yeah, I got a couple stuff to show you. And he looked there, he's like, wow, you improved, because he saw me for the last 2 years progressing, seeing how I was taking it a lot serious. Hold on, let me make a phone call for you. And it was a phone call to one of his buddies in the Innovation Kitchen, say, hey, you still looking for interns? All right, cool. Hung up the phone, I said, what's that about? He's like, yo, when you get home, resend this portfolio to me, change this, do this, adjust that, send it to me. Again, not guaranteed, but you might have a chance to get an internship here. I'm like, cool. All right, this is gonna be fun. So my whole senior year working on stuff, I think it was during our midterm crit for final presentation, I get a phone call from one of the hiring managers at Nike and say, hey, you have a free moment to talk? We're just chatting about different things. He's talking, asking me questions, and I'm just giving him questions, giving him answers. Lasted for like 20 minutes. He's all right, cool, I'll talk to you later. And I said, oh, quick question, before you get off the phone, did I get the internship? He's like, oh yeah, I just want to talk to you and kind of see how you were. And this kind of let you know that you got the internship, but just want to let you know, congratulations. Right before I go to do my critique, walk downstairs, I'm super excited, super juiced. I go first as usual, because I like going first, I like presenting. And at the end of the time, I told my instructor at the time, say, hey, I got an internship at Nike. They're like, what? You got an internship at Nike? How? You never talked about this. And that right there clicked in my brain. I'm like, I never shared a lot of stuff with people. I didn't share a lot of things that I want to do because, again, it goes back to me being Black and not having people resonate with me. Even though the creativity was there, we're all weird together, I just didn't have anyone to share those moments with and kind of express what I was going through. And I had to seek for it outside of school. And again, my mom, my dad, that's fine, but to have a resonation of me going through these trials and didn't really have anyone to really talk about that through. And for me personally, I always say this to the people, I hated Silicon Valley. I hated San Francisco because I always felt rejected for not being the person or look like the right person that fits the mold of design. And so for me, a lot of resentment, a lot of anger, and I kept that to myself. So I literally kept striving to be better than anyone that came in my way in a very polite way, not an arrogant way. And that was something I learned from my dad, was just kill them with kindness. Kill them with kindness until they recognize how great you are. And so from there, I got the internship. And when people found that out, people say, like, oh, hey, you should thought about going to IDO. You should do this. And I'm like, no, that's okay. I'm good. I don't need that. I know where I stand. I'm fine. I don't need those type of things. And people didn't understand why. I never spoke on it more and more about it. And that was something I didn't speak about until years later with people that work in the industry, that how I hated working with the design because I hated the way that people looked at us. Because again, no one took people like us serious. And that was something that I was so frustrated with all the time. As great as CCA is, and as great as CCA was for me, it gave me the foundation to really grow into the next chapter of my life after CCA. So which led me to going to Portland. And I remember telling my mom before I left, I wasn't coming back to California. I had no idea about Portland, never been to Portland. I just knew it rained. Besides my internship, my time I was up there for that week, that was the only time I've been there to really see what it was, but it wasn't really living there. And my mom was like, well, you can't say they're not going to come back. I said, no, I'm not going to come back at all. And I made that promise to myself because I want to prove to myself that I belong somewhere. And when I got to Nike, I was like, I started seeing faces that looked like me. during my time wasn't considered real design. This is respect, and I'm glad to be part of it. And I'm also glad to be part of Pencil. Dwayne, there's a lot of hidden faces that you just never knew that I didn't know, and that was such a time. In the chat, can you guys say yes, you can hear me or you can see me? All right, that's cool. It's kind of a cool weird thing. By the way, I do Twitch, so it's kind of not that weird for me because where I'm used to like looking at the chat and making sure everything's good with connection. Connection, your voice was breaking. Okay, I'll stand still and that might help it too. Everyone good still? Able to hear me? Sweet. Yeah. So yeah, so one of the things, me being in Portland, what I learned being with Dwayne and mentorship there was just really understanding what it meant to give back. And that's where the idea of working with people, students, education, that was really one of the things that pushed me too. So I did a lot of local programs within Portland, working with a lot of young Black youth. Was part of a group called BEN, where we actually worked with a lot of younger kids in high school. We developed a program. It was before our time, with a lot of the older designers who were there before us kind of handed it to us as a younger generation, and really find ways to give back. So we had designers, developers, engineers, and giving kids a point of view. And I faced a lot of the people that were just like me, where they're like, oh, you work at Nike? That's cool. You work at the employee store? That was the first thing that people always assume. But when we had a conversation and show them what we did as a living, they're like, wait, so you're telling me I can do this for a living? Like I can draw things, I can color things, I can build things and be around sports? And we're like, yeah, that's why we're here. They're like, yo, I never knew that. As much as these kids grew up in Portland and down the street from Nike and seen it, the only assortment they had was you either work at the employee store or you're an athlete. So even there's like, even in your own backyard, sometimes people don't even know what they have or who's around them to know what's actually out there for them to learn. Actually, 10 of the kids that we work with are actually working design right now. And that's a great thing to see, that there's a lot more of the kids that we worked with actually out in the real world and took the step to be designers in different ways. So that was a cool thing about experiencing about like education, which led me into Pencil. The way that we're starting that as well, being the foundation of Pencil. And that was the whole thing. He let me be a professor. Wanted to teach, never was able to teach in Portland. And that was my opportunity to teach with people. And again, giving back to the community was always been a thing of me as a designer. And this has been planted to me of this understanding how to give back and be meaningful for people. Because my time here on the earth, my time as a designer is so small. And if someone else is not being taught the next tools, just like I was, then what's the point of me doing this? And so that's really what empowered me to actually leave Nike. And this is, again, the corporation bubble of what we all face sometimes is how do you maneuver through corporations of a person like yourself, a person of color, man and female. That being at Nike was probably another eye opener, just like school. Even though there's people around me that look like me in mentorship, there was still this grasp of not being able to grow. And that was frustrating for me. And that was something that I felt Nike didn't offer, was growth, especially for people of color. Granted, there's a couple of people in positions here and there, and I'll give you an example of, I worked with a lot of athletes. So at Nike, I worked on innovation, I worked on basketball, training, football, American football, running, Yeah, I mean, I worked on a lot of projects. I worked on a lot of groups. The one particular moment in my time that stands out the most is I worked on football and baseball. And I worked with a lot of athletes. Matt Kemp used to be one of the Dodgers players. Me and he became very close. We both played basketball. We're both a similar age. Again, he's at a professional level. I'm at a design level. But we saw eye to eye, and we never saw each equals because we both connected on a different level that most people never did. And that was something I always resonated with. I always saw these people working with athletes. They always felt like they're always putting on an act. They're always doing too much and made the athletes not feel comfortable. And you didn't get genuine response. But when it came to me, I felt differently with them. I'm like, yo, this is your job. This is my job. We do things together. I'm just here to make sure that you can compete at the highest level you possibly can. And we started connecting more, and that made a lot of people mad. I used to get a conversation about so-and-so says you shouldn't talk to so-and-so. How do you have so-and-so's phone number? Who told you can talk to them? These are conversations I used to get. And here I'm like, I'm just doing my job. Like, me and him have a connection. What's the big deal? And I realized down the road, because a lot of conversation was because I was doing something they couldn't do. And again, I'm thinking to myself, like, but we're all here trying to accomplish the exact same thing, is to make sure the athlete's good. But in some people's eyes, it was, I'm taking their shine. I'm taking away their moment to be buddies with somebody. And I was like, yo, it's not that big of a deal. And that was something that never sat well with me, because I'm like, yo, why is it that I can't be friends with him at the same time design for him? Which led to a conversation when Matt Kemp actually came to campus. We had a big meeting, big presentation for him, and I wasn't invited to the meeting. For what reason? Never knew. About 30 people, our GM, VP, Matt's assistant, Matt's manager, everyone. He sits down and he asks my manager, he's like, yo, where's Cubby at? And they're like, oh yeah, he's not coming to this meeting. He's like, we don't start this meeting until Cubby's here. In front of 30 people that are my boss's bosses, and this is the athlete telling him, we're not starting this meeting until Cubby's here. Mind you, I'm at the bottom of the food chain when it comes to this type of conversation. So I don't even belong in this conversation. But somehow he had the authority, and I get a call saying, hey, you need to come to this meeting. And I was like, for what? I'm not invited to it. They're like, no, Matt wants you here. I'm like, okay. Walk into the room, everyone's staring at me. I walk in, I'm weird because I don't know what hell happened, because I don't know what was said. And Matt's like, yo, come here. You're sitting next to me. He pushed our VP and our president out of the way just to make space for me. For me, that's kind of mind-boggling, because I'm like, yo, I don't need this. But at the same time, I don't know what's going to happen to me when you leave, because I don't know how these people are going to feel about me taking their space, even though I didn't do anything. But came out, Matt was mad love, actually helped me a lot to give me more shine and more love than I got before. And again, it goes back to people validating for you. Is where the validation has to come from outside versus just seeing how genuine good someone is internally. And that's always something I was challenged with myself in corporate America, is that as much as we're the face of things sport-wise sometimes, there's a lot of faces that look like me, men and female, that just don't get the love and shine. And maneuvering through that situation was very unique. And like, that's where I knew I needed to make a move. And that move was me leaving Nike. And I talked to Dwayne about this, my mentor, my Jeff Henderson, E. Scott Morris, Wilson, all these are Black designers that are mentors, became part of my life and brothers, because they had been down this road for so long. And so that led me to having a conversation of leaving Nike. And he's like, what do you want to do? I said, I don't feel like I'm gonna grow here. I don't feel like I'm gonna get the opportunity that I deserve. He's like, you're right, find it. Don't let people depict where you should belong in this world. When you leave for what reason, but leave on a good and a high note that no one can ever say shit about you. And I admit that to myself. I'm all right, cool. So I'm getting a job at New Balance. When I got hired, I had a final presentation at Nike, and I went through the whole presentation, did everything, stayed up all night, completed stuff, worked with my teammates, did my presentation. I called my boss in at the end of the day and said, hey, I made my 2 weeks notice. And he's like, what do you mean? You just did a presentation, you're quitting? I said, yeah. He's like, but normally people will quit and not finish the work. I said, well, I'm not like everyone else. My whole job as a life has never been to leave people hanging. My dad taught me that, my mom told me that. So he's like, he didn't know how to comprehend that, where they literally try to make me stay and try to offer me that, but I already made my mind up. I'm like, yo, I'm not staying. I appreciate my time here, but it's time for me to move on and challenge myself to the next level. Because one of the things as a designer I've always been told myself is, You're a designer, it's a toolbox. In school, we have a toolbox full of things. We have, your sandpaper, you have your tools, measuring tool. For me as a designer, that was what I was told, like, look in your toolbox and see, what are you missing? What do you have? Because you don't have everything. You never come fully equipped. You come equipped with the foundation, but you don't come equipped with everything. And now something I'm like, okay, well, I want to be at this level. I want to be able to do this. I want to be able to do this. He said, does Nike offer that with you? I'm like, no. Find that place that's going to be able to give you that opportunity. So I'm going New Balance. New Balance at the time, dad's shoes, not cool. White leather, blue shoes, something your grandpa wears to church. And for me, I'm like, that's a fun challenge. And people are like, yo, it's New Balance. Why the hell would you want to go New Balance? You're leaving Nike? Why would you leave Nike? It's Nike. I'm like, that's my point. It's Nike. Other than that, you can't say nothing else about it. You're miserable, but you won't admit it. For me, if I'm not in the mood for this, I'm gonna move to something else and find a new growth. So I'm going to New Balance, worked on baseball, worked on training. And again, that was a huge shift for me because there's only 3 Black people at New Balance in the whole corporation I knew of. And that was weird. And it felt like high school all over again in middle school. And being on the East Coast in Boston, that was even weirder because, again, at a place out of mind, I'm from California. This is Boston. People are different. I don't know how to comprehend with this. Racism is very aware. They're very blunt with you. But I also kind of respect people being blunt because at least I don't have to worry about being with them anymore and being around fake people. But moving through that system was very interesting too, because again, face the same problems, but I had no one to talk to. Before at Nike, I had mentors, I had people of color, I had people at a certain position to be able to help me guide myself through the system. But the fun challenge for me in this New Balance situation was I'm on my own now, but I still have my mentors around me who aren't here. And if I can accomplish myself here and maneuver myself, then I can do anything else I want in my life. And that's what led me to be able to actually teach at one of the local colleges there, design schools called Mass Art, where I actually got an opportunity because of all the cool projects I was working on with these kids outside of work. These kids kept asking the design chair, like, yo, can you hire him? Because he's cool, he knows what to do, he's young. And at the time, they had mostly old people, no offense, but they're not resonating with the kids. But for you, you do. And so it took literally 2.5 years for me to get an opportunity to actually teach. And I ended up teaching mostly like adults at the time. And it was fun because I got a chance to actually utilize my gift of just helping people. And that was a fun experience with my first semester. The dean's like, yo, you really crushed this. Like, how you teach? I'm like, it's just like work. You deal with different personalities, you deal with different people from different backgrounds, and you identify with yourself with them and you find different ways to hone their energy in. And that's something that most people have a hard time doing. And I said, but for me, I like it because all I want to see is people do greatness. And some are greater than others, some will improve better than others. But for me, it was just how to keep the momentum and people feeling like the love of design was there for them. And so I did that for a couple of years, left New Balance, worked for Super Heroic. So a homie of mine, Jason Maiden, had left Nike. He was going to Stanford at the time. He started his own business. And he's like, yo, you want to come out? I'm like, of course, startup company, another tool in my box I had no idea about. And mind you, this is the first time I had a Black boss, all personal colored member cast that we worked with. And for me, it was like the playground for me that I've always wanted because I never had this experience of having a Black CEO, a person who's CFO and all these different type of people. And it was a great experience of being Silicon Valley was my coming home project of the place I didn't want to be part of, now I'm part of. And now I'm gonna show you guys what you've been missing and what I want to bring to the table, because the thing I learned about was just the disconnection and how much we didn't exist in Silicon Valley either. And that was another crazy thing. I'm like, damn, there's not one person of color at any position. And that was the goal of Super Hulk, was to give back, but also set a stone that people of color can do great things in Silicon Valley and not have to play the game and do all these different things. And that was a great experience for me because, again, I came back home to a place that I didn't want to be at ever again, but I was welcomed back by able to bring all the things I learned from the last years into one project and one building in one place around all these gifted people. And I belonged. And I was like, wow, this is what I was afraid of. And this is what I was angry at. But now I'm back here with a different mindset that's not 18. I see why. I can see how I can approach the situation a little bit differently. And that's what led me to, I ended up leaving Superheroic. And I'm at Skechers now, but I also do my own freelance stuff. And that's been something that's been cool. I do a lot of client work. I do a lot of cool things with different people, different backgrounds. I'm into music as well. I do my own graphics. But the cool thing about what I've learned as design within color for me personally is that in the state of it right now, where we're at in the world, with all the anger, the racism, all the frustration, to me, these last 6 months have been like everything in my brain for like the last, I'm not gonna tell you my age, but umpteen years that I've just never had anyone to express or understand and see that eye to eye. And for once, the world finally got to see a little bit and experience that. And great, I'm not saying that it's gonna be better. It's not gonna be the best today or tomorrow. But I think the idea of people finally seeing what most of us go through, never on the same level, but expressing and seeing the frustration. You're seeing a lot of it now with corporations. They're promoting a lot of people of color, taking resignation. I have friends at Adidas that were protesting, people at Nike, because of the injustice in companies. And that's something within corporate America that no one wants to talk about. You know, there's always these highlight athletes and there's other people as artists that we can utilize. But when it comes to the internal people that help make this stuff happen, we get treated like shit most of the time. And that's what's the frustration thing with me. And that has always been something that's been part of me. And how I maneuver through this day, literally take it day by day, but having people around me, my peers, keep me grounded, but also keep me fighting and never be comfortable has been my goal as my life. So with design within color, to me, my philosophy is don't hold back. Don't be afraid. Don't be afraid to ask questions. Fight for what you believe in. Even if something you're afraid of losing, like your job or something, just ask yourself, in a nutshell, is it worth your time? Do you feel like you're getting motivated from it? Because at the end of the day, if you're not motivated by anything, then what's the point of doing it? Because for me, it's all about motivation, about growth. And again, my toolbox is always constantly growing every day. And that's what I love about design. That's all about being creative. And that's why I never called myself a shoe designer, because I'm a person of all traits. I love graphics, I love film, I love production, I love everything that creates me to think differently and see the world differently. And I think that's what keeps me inspired and it keeps me going and wants me to give back to more people and help other people. And that's something I just will never stop doing, no matter what. But yeah, that's pretty much me in a nutshell. I know there's no people in the crowd. It's kind of weird when you don't see people, but it's kind of fun. But yeah, any questions that you guys have that you would love me to touch more on? Anything that got cut off and you want to hear more about? But I'm open book. I love giving back. Again, let me know. Random question. Are your parents just super cool, or did you come up with your own name and plus not being afraid in the model's journey? My grandfather gave me my name. Quick story. My dad's name was Bruce. My mom was pregnant. I didn't have a name for me. My grandfather said I had a spirit of an animal. No one knew what animal that was. My mom didn't care for it. They ended up naming me Bruce. My grandfather came to visit me in my crib. He gave me my bottle. I grabbed my feet and he's like, oh, like a little cub. And Cub turned to Cubby and everyone started calling me Cubby. And I responded to Cubby. So my parents legally changed my name to Cubby. And that became me. That became my personality. But I still have my full name with this Cubby in front of it. My dad was a salesman. So I got a lot of that side of him, of talking to people and seeing him and observing him, how he interact with people and how it wasn't about pleasing people. It's about getting the job done by any means necessary to make sure that you can close a deal. And be able to talk and be buddies with people is one thing, but to be able to be respected on that same level is another thing. And that's something I looked up to him a lot for. And my motto my grandfather used to give to us is, when you're good, you're golden. That was something I was trying to live by and have fun with it. What did you do that you feel is necessary in your last year of school? Seek out mentorships and seek out internships and push yourself class-wise to take things that aren't expected for you to learn. That's one of my biggest regrets in college. I didn't take a lot of extracurricular classes. I did ceramics, which was kind of my early major, which I love ceramics. I like building things. but I kind of wish I took furniture class. I kind of wish I took more graphic design classes because again, that would help me along my time of presentations, building models. But one of the things that I always encourage people in college is that this is the only time you have a place to just really experiment and not really have a boundary. I know you have your major, but definitely one of the things that I wish I did more of is just take more classes. But for me, what I end up doing is reaching out to more people and getting more experience outside of school, like an internship, mentorship, taking on different projects that require you to kind of interact with other people besides your classmates and besides your professor. What do you believe are the best qualities of a mentor? Someone who understands you and where you come from. Not to say everyone's walked the same shoe or walked in the same shoes as everyone, but definitely characteristics of people who genuinely want to help you and not get something out of it. Dwayne, like I keep mentioning Dwayne, he's my brother. Like he's not my mentor, he's my brother. I called him yesterday just for shits and giggles because I can, and to see how he's doing. And that's what a mentor is, where even when you're not being mentored or mentee, you can have a conversation about life. And I think that's something that people should look for when you're getting a mentor, is someone who's willing to help you and understand and see how they can help you maneuver through whatever system you're trying to maneuver through, or learn something just with you. Again, if I want to be Elon Musk, I don't know how to build cars, but I'm gonna find him, I'm gonna talk to him. I'm not trying to take his job, but I'm just curious of his thought process. Now, I'm not sure how he would be with me, but seek out people that you have interest in and see where it takes you. Because those qualities will come about, because sometimes it's hard to have those quality questions with people, but you'll start to kind of grasp of, okay, this person's good for me having this type of conversation. This type of person is not good to have this type of conversation. And I think you'll learn, and that's something I always encourage people to learn as you talk to people and get information from instructors, people you work with, just get to know them. And you'll figure out how you all work together.
Cubby, I had a little bit of a technical issue here. Let me read the questions for you.
Oh, okay.
So that way you don't have to do that. The next question is from Sarah Tatmon. When going into your internship, did you have a lot of experience in sketch to production?
Yes and no. During the early times at CCA, sketching wasn't a big thing. Probably towards like my last couple of years, we started really emphasizing sketching. I think that was just something we saw culturally was shifting, and just the kind of ask from different studios like IDEO, Frog, Fuse Project, like seeing the competition of where other students are coming from and the capabilities. For me, sketching, I'm a doodler. I kind of call myself a doodler. I'm not like a render monster. I have classmates that were in my class who could design, draw the hell out of everything. But for me, it was essentially a skill I didn't have that wasn't strong enough. And I pushed myself to learn that skill. And that was something as an internship, like it helped me grow a lot, as well as get into internships, is really storytelling, sketching, and really to apply what you're trying to articulate. Because like at the end of the day, it was all about storytelling from start to finish. And that was with every other project. Pushing sketching was one of the big things I just wanted to push myself more and more and get better at. I couldn't draw everything in the world, but I tried my best and pushed myself to learn that very cool.
So I have a question from Betty Jin. What did you do that you feel is necessary in your last year of school?
Internships, mentors, and take more classes outside of your practice. That's something I didn't do, but that's something I always tell people to do while they're in school, is to take on opportunities and internships that aren't the prettiest. Again, everyone wants the big ones, I get it, but you gotta remember you're the cream of the crop. But find a local brand that needs help, and you can learn with them and utilize your skills. Same thing with ideation, same thing with mentorship. Seek people within the industry, but also seek out people that are not in your industry and kind of pick their brain. Try to encapsulate yourself around as many creative people you possibly can at every level. I always say, shoot your shot. If you want to have a conversation with Elon Musk, shoot him an email. You might get rejected, but hell, the worst thing that happens, he says yes or he says no. But at the end of the day, don't be afraid to ask the big questions to the big people, but also be mindful of the people around you that are trying to reach that same level as you and have those conversations.
So the next question is from Lindsay Linayao. And the question is, do you have a dream collaboration or a dream client?
It's a tough one. I never thought about that one. I would love to collab with, yeah, that's a tough one, man. Why you got that's the toughest one. Where, I mean, for me, I want to work with. I would love to break in the industry of film. If I can work with Christopher Nolan, I would put that as my ultimate goal. Great storyteller, great filmmaker, understands the human connection, and for me, that I'm in love with. I love his films, so I'd love to work with him on the future film. It's a tough one, Lindsay. Thank you.
One from Mara Holtz Cove. Hi, Cubby. What do you want to design that you have not had a chance to design yet?
A movie set for a TV or film, and that's probably my biggest goal. Something I haven't designed yet that I would really love to design is be part of the entertainment business.
Anonymous question. Where can we find mentor sources outside of school? How can we get connected with those sources?
That's a good question. See, for me, my best answer, I always tell people, shoot me an email, cubbygolden@gmail.com, and something you're particularly looking for, I can point you in a direction to a person that'd be great to talk to. Another source is LinkedIn. I know a lot of people have used that before, and now with Instagram, every business has an Instagram. Like I said, like shoot your shot with a lot of designers, people at every level. I mean, current climate right now, you have nothing to worry about where it's like, if you're really looking for somebody, you'll find somebody. But yeah, my whole thing, start with your class, start with your instructor, start with anyone that's in your circle. Alumni, I know there's an alumni list that goes out from people with different industries. Reach out to them. Just let them know who you are and what you're looking for and talk about some things. And I'm always open to have conversations. I can point you in the right direction. Like I said, I don't know everything. I'm not the mastermind of everything, but I can at least point you to the right person or a person to have a chit chat with and see where it goes with you.
I have a question from Kathleen McGovern. What do you believe are the best qualities of a mentor?
Someone who's willing to help you. Someone who really wants to push you to their next level. I always had this conversation with people I work with or bosses. Another designer, another big designer from the shoe industry, his name's Tinker Hatfield. He designed every Jordan. He's pretty much the godfather of footwear design. When I first met him, I told him, yo, I want your job. He's like, excuse me? I'm like, yeah, my name's Cubby and I want your job. And I said, in a respectful way, because I know you have goals of where you want to reach, and there's goals I want to reach. And you're one of the levels which you see, I want to reach that level. And he took that, he's like, oh, okay, I see what you're saying. And we were able to have a conversation about growth. And I think that's something you always have to ask yourself, like, what are you reaching out for? And what are you trying to get from? Because again, like I said, not every mentor is a great mentor. I have had shitty mentors. Again, it's a trial and error. No one's perfect. Some people have different times. People are different places in their time. Some people see the risk of like, well, I don't want you to overexceed me. But for me, I would say reach out to anybody that has good qualities that you can grow with and becomes a friend, a brother, a sister, whatever they might be in your life down the road, and they're no longer mentors.
I have a question from Kathleen Harper. What's your favorite project that you worked on to date and why?
I would say it's not a sports project. It's actually a project we at Nike used to do every year. We used to team up with the Children's Hospital in Portland. And I got an opportunity to work with this young lady who was battling cancer not once, but twice in her life. And got a chance to work with her, design her shoe, and really bring her story to life. So that was a great opportunity, probably, I guess for me, most great emotional connection project that I still remember, because here's a kid who battled cancer twice. Here I'm complaining about not being able to do this today. And I'm like, all right, let me pump my brakes and just kind of look at the bigger picture of this is a child who's suffering. This is a child who beat it and she's still alive today. And I have an opportunity to bring her story to life. Let's make this happen. So that was probably for me the most meaningful project and most like high up there project. Oh,
this next one is not a question, but it's a request. Mm-hmm. It's from Carolyn DeBear. Hi, I teach the CCA shoe design class, which was introduced last year. Being in lots of guest lectures from the industry, and I would love to have you coming next semester.
I'm always down for it. And I'll shoot a great other person, like I said, I will connect you with Dwayne Edwards at Pencil, because I think Pencil and CCA should have a relationship. And that's something Pencil is always about, is relationships with institutes all around the world. So that's something we can talk about offline, connection-wise, and anything I can do to help.
The next question is from Mr. Tony Zhou. Hi, Cubby. What's a student's portfolio that stood out to you recently, and what was unique about it?
I don't get to see a lot of portfolios as of late. That's the one thing I wish I had more opportunity to look at. But when people show me work just to kind of get feedback, nothing really stands out. Is mostly me just kind of giving them guidance about what's not there and what needs to be there. Oh, excuse me. Because I always tell people this, listen, how many institutes are in the world today? How many college kids are graduating and applying for a job? What's going to make you stand out the most is adding a personal element of you and you be able to tell a story, because I expect you to be able to render. I expect you to be able to sketch. I expect you to be able to draw things. But the one thing that people don't over expect is, are you able to communicate your ideas very clearly? And that's something I always notice the most, that stand out the most to me, is clarity of this telling a story. Because I expect anyone's work to be at a level that they're at. Granted, not everyone's at the same level, but you can kind of see the growth within people's projects. But is mostly what stands out the most to me is someone who takes the time to really lay out their story. And I always tell people, all you need is 3 to 4 great projects that tell 3 different stories and what you're trying to solve for. Because if you tell me the same story for every project, you got to think about it as a recruiter. I'm looking at this every day, every minute, every hour. I'm just going to keep slicing through and call it a day. But those that stand out the most are people you truly can see who take time to really just bring a little bit of their personality in it, but at the same time, bringing a nice storytelling that catches your eye of problem solving.
The next question is from Webster. If you could go back and change anything throughout your journey, would you change anything? If not, why would you keep things the same?
Good question, Webb. By the way, that's my friend. We've known each other since middle school, so I know exactly why he's asking that question. Nothing. I wouldn't change anything, because I think what made me who I am today and the struggles I went through, the ups and downs, the losses, the gangs, I wouldn't be in front of you guys talking about this right now. I think that's what makes us all uniquely human beings, is that we go through different experiences. We're all born in different scenarios, some greater than others, some less. And I think that's what brings us together, is the moments, the time to share these stories and reconnect with people. And for me, my growth as a human being, yeah, there's a lot of things that would change, but I'm like, you know what? If I change that, then it would be boring. I probably wouldn't be this way I am.
The next question is from Sarah. What aspect of your ID toolset would you focus more on if you were in school again, now that you have a full perspective on the industry?
Sketching and model making. I love building things, and that was a weird thing I wish I'd spent more time on, because I loved building stuff as a kid. I just felt like I lost it because of this overwhelming of trying to finish every single thing. Because as a designer, you know, you're the shop guy, you're the designer, you're the marketing person, you're the person who figures out how to collab with it. And to me at that time, I was just trying to get everything done. and didn't really spend enough time on certain things that I wish I spent, which is like model making and sketching, which I do now. Well, not model making, but I try to do a lot more crafty things in my life as I got older, but it definitely breaks your psyche away from the normal stuff of just the routine over and over. So I always say just push yourself in new directions and not be afraid of it, and not be okay that you're not going to be the master of it, but just keep pushing yourself, because down the road you look back at your life and say like, man, I wish I spent more time on it. But really and truthfully, you're like, wow, this actually helped me get this idea out even more in different ways.
The next question is from me.
Oh,
What where has been your favorite place to work, and why, out of everywhere that you worked on?
I always tell people this: every place has its pros and cons. Not one place is greater than the other, especially in corporate. I would say Nike was my going to graduate school. I was looking at that. My 6 years there was essentially me being in graduate school. I learned so much about business, collaboration, how to interact with people, how to grow, how to manage myself as an adult in a world that I didn't know where I even belonged in. And it was past shoes. Like at that point, it wasn't even about shoes anymore. It was about me growing into a new experience. And I thought that was like my master's degree. New Balance opened my eyes in different ways of just looking at how, when people say they're a global brand, sometimes they still think small. And I think that was something that was always a crutch of trying to get people to think differently, but they almost had an assumption of, well, Nike does it this way. And you're like, well, I've been there. That's not actually how they would do it. It's actually much simpler, but everyone make it complicated because they feel like they have to make it complicated. But for me, it was like, all right, well, this is my time to learn how to talk to people, educate people on what things can go the way they should go. Super Hulk was great because it was just it got back to the nature of helping the next generation of youth. Skechers has allowed me to lead different ways that I never got the chance to lead, different multi-categories. But at the end of the day, every place has its pros and cons, just like education. One place is never better than the other. I always was taught, listen, take what you can from it and help it grow you, because whatever you're trying to do is, you're not meant to be here forever. So take what you can from this place and look at the bad and say, okay, I don't need this, but the goodness, right? I'll take this, I'll take that, and then move on to the next thing. And then that's something I've been doing throughout my whole life, my career. And that's where my agency stuff I do a lot now, freelancing, is I pick and choose who I want to work with. I've turned down clients just because I don't think we mesh well. And a lot of people are like, why would you turn that down? Like, because I don't want to waste people's time. It's pointless. Like, just because it's an opportunity doesn't mean I have to take it. And I think having that freedom as you grow in your career is like, you're your own boss of decision making. Like right now, I can't say, well, I'm not gonna work on this project. Well, it's like, well, you gotta do it. It's like, all right, yeah, you're right, I gotta finish this project. But when you do your own business, you control your narrative. Now, that's something that everyone should strive to have, is be their own boss, be their own guidekeeper of what they wanna do down the road.
So we have time for one last question. And that question is from Mr. Levin Fu. Hey, Cubby, which sneakers are your favorite ones? Okay, that's a hard one.
None of them. I hate shoes.
And why? Is there any stories about you or your shoes? Any interesting stories that you want to just finally talk about?
Nope. As I was younger, I loved shoes, loved them to death. Favorite shoe in the world, Jordan 11. Because of the story, Jordan 11 and Foam Posits were my favorite shoe in the world. Getting a chance to meet the individuals who worked on it and hearing the backstory, and then them hearing why I'm so gravitated toward it, and seeing their nonchalant face of like, it was just a shoe. But seeing the moments of that shoe coming out for me was like impactful. Like the Foam Posit, watching Arizona win the championship with Mike Bibby, and the shoe had never been released. And it was a sample that I found out. The Jordan 11 being this dress shoe that was inspired. Those things impacted me as an individual of like, I want to create those moments. As I got older, those moments started dying very quickly because there's so much I kept creating. And so right now, my shoes, they're the shoes. Like outside of work, I don't talk about shoes. I don't do nothing about shoes. I'm on something different. Like that's how my thought process has been. If people are like, yo, but it's shoes, I'm like, yeah. I was told once, like, listen, if this is going to be your career, you got to find separation. because you will burn yourself out and you'll get tired of it. And you'll get frustrated with it and you will hate it. And when you start hating something, that's when you don't want to do it anymore. And so far I've been good enough to keep my momentum going, but I have a limit between 9 and 5, shoes all day. Outside of that, don't talk to me about shoes. I'm talking about music. I'm talking about art, talking about movies, talking about crazy things, because I have to constantly keep my brain circulating. And I encourage that to everyone else, even design as a whole. Find things that keep you motivated outside of your daily routine, because you will find new passion, find new insight that will keep you, like every other great designer in the world now, going, because there's a lot of great designers in this world, I won't name them, that should have retired a long time ago because they don't have the love and passion for it. They don't want to teach anyone. They don't care about no one. And that's fine. They built their equity. But for me, I never want to be that person. I want to be a person that feels like I just got in design yesterday. And that's how I always end with different things at design.
So, Cubby, me and the whole industrial design department at CCA, teachers, as students, want to thank you for your time. Want to thank you for your insightful information. We keep looking forward to seeing more of your great work out there, and we are hoping that let's connect. Let us know what you're up to, and we only wish the best for you. Thank you very much for your time.
No, appreciate it. I appreciate you guys having me. Again, if anyone in the chat that has questions that didn't get answered or want to know more information, Cubby Golden, first and last name together, @gmail.com. Shoot me a question, shoot me a portfolio, whatever you want to share with me. I'll make the time to get back to you as soon as possible. But no, I appreciate you guys having me. CCA, again, I wouldn't be in this position without you guys, and I appreciate us sharing these moments together, as well as being able to attend CCA. Actually, I should say this, I attended CCAC. That's where I graduated from. But much love to you guys. I appreciate you guys having me. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Oh yeah, wash your hands and wear your mask, guys. Don't be mean to people.
Always do.